My mom put the tickets on the table without lifting her eyes from the laptop and said, 1,100 each. Anyone who can't afford it stays. I wiped my hands on my napkin and never looked in her direction again. Then I got the notice from the bank. I just took my hand off the table and looked at my brother. He was eating brie crackers and pretended not to hear anything. My sister was laughing at something on her phone. Her husband was sitting in the corner as usual, absorbed in the sports news. Typical family night. We're almost all paid up. All that's left is your ticket, Mom continued. But you said you were having a bad month. I nodded again. She changed the subject as if nothing had happened, and I just got up and went into the bedroom and closed the door. There on the nightstand was my phone. It was flashing. A notification from the bank. Payment. 4,472.16. Business class tickets. Zurich. My card. Not theirs. It's mine. I didn't buy the tickets. I opened the app. For tickets. The name of the payment holder is mine. Used through Apple Pay. Binding is my sister's iPhone. They didn't even ask. Didn't think it was necessary. I hit dispute all transactions and froze the account. Then I went into the kitchen, put water in the kettle. No one noticed. Everyone kept talking about transfers, rooms, weather. I stood with my back to them. The kettle boiled. I went back to the bedroom, sat on the bed, turned on my laptop. The tickets weren't cheap, but I'd chosen a different route. One ticket. Not to Switzerland. Just somewhere quiet. The next morning at 7:12, I got a text from my sister. Why isn't anything paid for? We're on stock. It's all frozen. I replied, you said if I can't afford it, I'm staying. So I'm staying. There was no reply. Then came 3 voicemails from my mom. I didn't open them. I just mute them. Half an hour later, my father came in. He didn't say a word. He looked at me, then went to his office. No one asked any questions. I sat at my desk, ate my oatmeal with a banana, and thought about one thing. When did I become a wallet to them instead of a person? At 10:03 a.m., I received a notification from the bank. Funds returned. Access restored. I smiled. Not with happiness. From clarity. I figured it out. The point had been made for me. All I had to do was not rewrite it. I left the house at 12:17. The suitcase was small, but it wasn't the weight that made it light. I got to the airport by 3 o'clock. There weren't too many people. Everything went according to plan. Check-in, boarding, the window by the wing. I sat down, put my bag under the seat and closed my eyes. No one called. On the connecting flight to Chicago, I stopped at a cafe. I ordered an omelet, toast, and coffee. While waiting for the bill, I unlocked my phone. 5 messages from my brother. 1 from my mom. A picture of an empty front desk and the caption, "Happy now." I closed the screen. I went back to my omelet. I arrived at the place close to bedtime. The hostel was clean, no frills. But I didn't need much more than that. There was a shelf of books on the wall. I took the first one without even looking. In the morning, I went to the embankment. There was no one there. I sat down on a bench and took out a notebook. I hadn't written in 10 years. But my hand started to move. First line. I was crossed off a long time ago. I just said yes now. The screen on the phone lit up again. Dad. I unplugged it. At lunchtime, I walked into a local coffee shop. The hostess smiled. You're not from around here? I nodded. She placed a cup in front of me. From me. Just for fun. I nodded again. In that moment I felt seen. Not as a function. Not as a spare account. Just as a person. I stayed in town for 3 more days. No one knew where I was. No one asked, "Are you okay?" Just questions. "What are you doing? Couldn't you just be patient? You set us up." I didn't answer. They didn't want my answers. They needed my acquiescence. It was over. On the evening of the 3rd day, I saw a message from Aunt Clara. She hadn't written since my college graduation. She's always been the neutral party. "I don't know what's going on," she wrote. "But if you do decide to be alone, know this, I understand." It was the first message without threats, recriminations, or requests. Just a point of understanding. Small but noticeable. I clicked Save to Favorites. Not because I needed a reminder, just so I wouldn't lose the feeling that someone knew how to speak without yelling. On the fourth day, my mom texted, "If you think it's okay to do that to your family members, you're very wrong." I didn't respond. On the fifth, my brother sent a meme. A crude one. Insinuating. I ignored it too. They didn't know I'd already withdrawn money from my joint account. I transferred everything to a new one. Blocked the old cards. Passwords, autofills, family device bindings deleted. On the morning of the sixth day, I called work. Took a 2-week vacation. No one objected. The office already knew. When I'm quiet, it's best to stay out of the way. I drove on along the coast. No itinerary. I just drove. Stopped when I wanted to. I slept when I was tired. Paid for everything myself. Not because I had to, because I could. On the seventh day, I got an apartment in a small town. No roommates. No asking. No family chats. I opened my laptop. I opened a blank document. And I wrote a sentence that no one read but me. When you don't say anything, they think you're agreeing. When you leave, they think you're punishing. But you just stop being. I saved the file. Closed the laptop. Put the kettle on. And finally, I didn't feel guilty. I stayed there for another 3 days. I walked, sat in cafes, read. Not because I needed a distraction, but because no one disturbed me. The phone rarely rang. More and more often it was from unknown numbers. I didn't pick up the phone. On the fourth morning, I saw a message. "Dad's in town. Maybe he'll come by and see you. He's worried." I didn't answer it. Not because I was angry. It's just, if someone's worried, they don't start by stealing your card. I went to the market. I bought bread, cheese, mint. The vendor asked me a question. "For two?" "No," I said. "It's all for me." And I said it without shame. No explanation. No elaboration. And then I just went home. Opened the window. Made tea. And shut up. No offense. Not in drama. But in silence. In which no one finally asked me to understand. It wasn't until evening that I put my phone on the charger. It blinked once as if to say, "Are you coming back?" I turned the screen off. No. Not now. Maybe never. What happened next changed everything. Subscribe and stay. You don't want to miss how it unfolded. I didn't expect them to leave it like this. Silence is not in our family. We either speak for you or we speak for you. Or blame. Calm is only on the surface. There's always something sticky underneath. On the sixth day, Mom sent a postcard. A real one. With stamps. "I know you like paper," she handwrote. It's someone else's handwriting. She used to always have me sign everything for her. The card has an alpine cabin and the words, "Family is waiting for you." I put it on the edge of the table. Not in the trash, let it sit there to remind me of our waiting. A day later, my father showed up. He didn't write, didn't call, just rang the doorbell. He was standing there with a bag and the same expression on his face with which he had once handed me a diploma from school. Neutral like a bank teller. "Can I come in?" he asked. "You can," I said. "But it won't make any difference." He went into the kitchen, looked around. He sat down. He took out a paper bag. "It's cheese. You used to love this one with caraway seeds." I didn't say anything. He put the bag on the table. Sat down. Wiped his glasses. "I'm not here for that. Although, I don't know why," my mom said. "Talk to her, maybe she'll cool down." I nodded. Not because I agree. Just registering. That's what I thought. He rubbed his forehead. She was wrong. With the card. With the ticket. I didn't know, honestly. I wouldn't have let her. But you understand how things work here. "Yeah," I said. "Things always just happen. I just always cry afterward." He stopped talking. "Do you want us to apologize?" "No. I just don't want you to go on." "Do what?" "Using. Pretend. Pressure. Manipulate. Pause until you need me." He exhaled heavily. Turned back to the window. "It's not like we're enemies. We're family. Family isn't a role. It's a choice. I just don't choose anymore." He left after 20 minutes. Took the cheese. He said, "Sorry to bother you." I closed the door. Slowly. No click. No sense of triumph. Just quiet. That evening I went to the store. I needed to buy coffee. A woman in her 60s, her hair in a bundle, her voice confident. stopped me at the checkout counter. "Excuse me, are you Grace Henderson's daughter by any chance?" I nodded. "I heard you didn't go with them. Grace said you were tired of family." I smiled. "Let it be so." She fell silent. Then she exhaled. "I'm staying out of the way, but if you really are tired, as she says, you're not alone. Some people are tired all their lives, but they keep quiet. At least you left." I didn't know who she was. Maybe someone from an old acquaintance. Maybe just someone who heard the conversation at the beauty parlor. The next day my brother called me. "This isn't normal anymore," he began. "You don't answer, you don't get in touch, everyone is worried. We are not your enemies." "I know who you are," I said. "That's why I'm not coming out." He exhaled irritably. "You've always been abrupt. We just want you back. We'll talk it over. No pressure." "No," I said. "No pressure is when you don't take other people's cards. Everything else is habit." He hung up. A couple hours later, a text came in from his wife. "I don't know what your squabble is, but Michael is worried. You could have been gentler. We're all adults." I didn't answer. I just blocked it out. Later that evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of water and watched the road. Cars drove by, unaware that inside one apartment something was forever over. My mom posted a photo from Switzerland on social media. "Everyone is smiling." The caption, "We are only the closest. Only our own." I looked at it and for the first time I felt no anger or resentment. Just one thing. At least it was honest. The next morning I went to the library. It was quiet, smelling of dusty spines and coffee that someone had brought in a thermos. I sat down in the far corner, took out my laptop, and opened the document again. On the screen was one sentence. "When you don't say anything, they think you're agreeing." I added, "When you speak, they pretend not to hear." At noon there was a knock on the door. I went back to the apartment. A neighbor was standing on the doorstep. She was holding a bag of pastries. "My husband and I are leaving," she said. "I wanted to leave you something. Maybe you'll stay here a little longer." I thanked her. We weren't close, just good neighbors. But that was enough. That evening I found another postcard in the mailbox. From my mom. This time it was a view of the lake and it said, "It's not too late to get it all back." There was no signature. I clutched the card in my hand, put it on the shelf next to the first one. A boring series of marketing phrases against a glossy background. Nothing else. I made dinner: roasted vegetables, plain rice. No frills. No serving. Just for myself. While I was eating, I got a text from a distant cousin, the one I hadn't seen since high school. "Aunt Grace says you're freaking out. I don't know what the big deal is. But if you really need to be left alone, just say it sometime normally. Not with silence." I didn't respond. I deleted the message. He'd said it all without even realizing how accurate. Silence is not manipulation. It's a form of self-respect. But they don't know how to read it. Later I turned off the light, lay on the couch. I lay there for a long time without closing my eyes. Then I whispered into the darkness, "I'm not coming back. Not like before." Only silence answered me. And that was enough. On the 8th day I went to the sea. It was overcast, the waves rattled like old doors. I sat down on the cold sand, took out my notebook. I wrote. I wasn't broken. I was stretched for comfort, for silence, for patience. But now I'm whole again. I didn't know who it was for. But it felt true. When I returned, my mom was standing in the entryway. Coat, scarf, bag. She didn't even knock. She was just waiting. "Are you serious?" she asked me. "Yes." "About what?" "We just wanted what was best. It's all blown up over some little thing." "I'm not a little thing. I'm someone you didn't ask. It's just money. You know we'd have gotten it back. You didn't ask." She clutched the bag to her chest. "We were worried. You were angry. It's not the same thing." She didn't say anything. Then she exhaled. "You've always been stubborn. Ever since you were a kid. Doing things your own way. I'm not asking for permission anymore." She wanted to say something else, but she didn't. She just looked into his eyes. There was no remorse there. Just resentment. That I didn't obey. I opened the door. I had to go. She didn't come in. She didn't say goodbye. She just turned around and walked away. I closed the door. Slowly. Tight. And then I lay on the floor and stared at the ceiling for a long time. It was empty. And for the first time, good. The next day I got a letter. An envelope with no return address. Inside was a newspaper clipping. A picture of our family against the mountains. The headline read, "Henderson family exemplifies family unity." I laughed. Not loudly. Just exhaled like a bad joke. They were still acting the part. Even without an audience. Even without me. I took the clipping to the trash chute. I didn't throw it away, I just put it on top. Let someone else decide if it was worth keeping. I spent the rest of the day in a cafe. Across from me sat a couple in their 60s. He was reading, she was knitting. They didn't talk. But you could tell they didn't need to. They didn't push each other. They didn't play a role. They were just there for each other. I got home in the late afternoon. I put my phone on the charger. It blinked 16 unread. I chose delete all. Not because I was tired. It was because I chose not to be available. I took out my notebook. I wrote a title on a blank page. What happens when you stop being broken? And you start talking? Underneath it, not a word. Just a line. Black. Straight. In the evening I cooked dinner: roasted cabbage, potatoes, garlic. A simple meal. It smelled like home. Not the kind you never want to go back to. It was the one you built for yourself. When the streetlights went out, I blew out the candle. I realized that the darkness was no longer frightening. It was finally my own. Later that night I opened the window. The cold came into the room. I didn't close it. Not because I'd forgotten, I just wanted to feel something real. The wind moved the curtains. Somewhere downstairs a door slammed. I sat on the windowsill and thought, if I disappeared completely, who would be the first to realize I was gone? And the answer came. And that was enough. I got up, put the rest of my dinner on, sat down at the table. I took my time. And I realized I'm not alone. I'm with me. For the first time in a long time. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Subscribe now to see the hero put everyone in their place. I didn't stop. I just stopped writing. There was no plan, no grand design. I lived. No reports. No what will they think. I made mornings for myself, not the group. Dinner not out of compromise. Silence not as punishment but as air. On the 9th day I got a call from work. Asked if I wanted to take more. I said no. One of the few no's in my life that I didn't feel like apologizing for. I changed apartments. Not the city. Just walls. The ones that were there were too soaked with expectations. The new place: white walls, 3 windows, wood floors, an old closet with peeling paint. It's not perfect. But it's hers. I never told anyone the address. Not even those who used to just drop by for a minute. The phone was rarely on. Once or twice a day for an hour. To check the bank, the weather, sometimes the mail. There were a lot of messages. All the same. You're wrong. You betrayed us. You could have just talked. It's only money. We miss you. I read. But I didn't respond. Because there was no point in arguing with a structure I didn't build. Sometimes I went out to the waterfront. People were walking, some arguing, some laughing. I just walked by. Invisible. And there was freedom in that. Freedom is not being seen. It's when you're not touched. One day I got a call from a coworker. Said my father had called the office. He wanted to make sure I was really at work. Are you okay? The coworker asked. Yes, I replied. I'm just off duty now. He was quiet. Jealous. I closed the laptop. In that moment I knew things would be different. Not better. Not calmer. Just different. No, you have to be patient. No, this is the way it's done. No, it'll be awkward. None of those. A week later I got a letter. A real one. Paper. Envelope with a bank logo on it. Inside was a notice. Your authority as co-owner of the joint family account has been revoked. I smiled. Too late. I'd already withdrawn the money 3 weeks ago. Left a zero. The system was finally starting to respond. Not realize, not repent. It's reacting. Like a machine that's had its battery removed, and suddenly noticed it wasn't working. I didn't write. I didn't call. Not one complaint. Not one threat. Just action. And everything changed. I returned to the coffee shop where the hostess was leaving me a cup. Just for fun. She looked at me. and immediately understood. Stay longer? I nodded. For a long time this time, I said. We didn't talk again. We just drank coffee. Each one different. No specifics. One morning I saw a woman on a bench outside the store. Her name was Carol. We weren't close, but she knew my mother. She looked at me, said, "She still thinks you're just offended." "I'm not," I replied. "It shows," she said. "You're not mad. You just walked away." That was the most accurate thing I'd heard in weeks. Walking away isn't anger. It's clarity. A realization. If you stay, you're not living your life. I wasn't going to be someone else's convenience anymore. I wasn't asking for love. I wasn't proving justice. I just stepped out. Out of the role. Out of the story. Out of someone else's script, where my name was in the credits but not in the dialogue. In March I enrolled in a course. Not for the diploma. Just to listen to a voice that wasn't drowned out by pretension. The literature instructor was a woman in her 70s, stern, quiet. She began each lecture with the phrase, "There is no right here. There is what works for you." I wrote her words down on the first page of my notebook. Not as a quote, as a rule. A question was once asked in a group. Who would you be if everything familiar disappeared? I wrote, "Finally me," and I never erased it. Sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night and waited for the alarm to come. A call. A rebuke. A reminder. But silence would come. I left it. I didn't fill it. Anxiety is also a habit. It has to be weaned off like smoking. When I turned 40, I spent the day alone. Not because no one called me. It was because I didn't tell them where I lived. In the morning, I bought myself some flowers. White ones. No reason. At lunch, I ordered pasta. I didn't make it. I did. In the evening, just opened the wine and watched an old movie that I used to turn on for the family but never finished. In the mail that morning was a letter from my sister. An email. Subject: Do you want to talk? I didn't open it. Not because I'm angry. Because I don't have a subject anymore. My subject is me. Not their attempts at a comeback. Not the thin threads of "you're still family after all." Not the invitations to a new version of the old dinner, where the table still has the same faces and the same silence, only now they'll say "you're good for coming," and forget who's in front of them again. I didn't come. And I won't come again. A month later I got a postcard. Not from my family. It was from the same teacher. She said, "You listened. That's more than most people do." I hung it on the wall. No frame. Just a button. It wasn't praise. It was a statement. I exist after all. I stopped keeping old letters. I burned the ones I had in my drawer from a previous life. No ritual. No tears. I just lit the stove and put them in the flames one by one. There were greetings, clippings, children's drawings signed Mom's Joy. I wasn't burning a memory. I was burning guilt. They're not coming back. And I won't get back who I was. And that's not the tragedy. It's the bottom line. When I saw a woman in the supermarket who looked like my sister, I didn't look away. I looked straight ahead. But she wasn't her. Just a passerby. I turned around and walked on. No hiding. No hiding. Just not needing. In early May, the intercom rang. A man's voice said, "I'm from my father. He asked me to deliver a package." I went out. There was a white envelope on the bench. And signed. Inside was a receipt that said "Obligations closed." No letters. No words. No claims. I didn't know why they did it. But I realized. They were now afraid I'd say something. Show someone. Tell them what happened. I wasn't going to. Not because I'm afraid. It's because I don't have to. I'm not looking for payback. I don't apologize. I don't make a scene. I've built a space for myself. They can keep the stage. I left town in the middle of June. Without telling anyone. I just packed my bags and got on the train. Not looking for something. I went on. A new one. Where I am now doesn't matter. It's quiet. People say hello without knowing my name. The stores are small. The cafes don't have Wi-Fi. The library has a card system. It's old school. And it suits me. I got a job at the archives. I spend all day sorting through people's files. Some would call it boring. I call it transparent. There's no pressure. No one's demanding. No one brings up how much you owe for all the good stuff. I rent a place above a drugstore. Old chair, creaky floor, one window. And I'm not cramped. One day in the middle of the day I found a letter. No return address. It had only my name on it. Inside was a photo of me at a table 10 years ago, at the very dinner where everything went wrong. Underneath the photo was a caption. You were about to leave. You just didn't know how. No date. No signature. Just handwriting similar to my own. I left the photo on the shelf. Not as a reminder. As a fact. I was gone. Not from family. From function. Out of duty. Out of role. I'm just a person now. Not a daughter. Not a sister. Not a heroine. Just a woman who chose herself. And owes no one a report. In the evening I put the kettle on. A dog barked outside. Someone was arguing across the street. I looked out the window. And there was only one thought in my head. No one will ever get back what I've lost. But no one will take away what I have now. This is enough. That's enough. Later that night I wrote in my notebook. I didn't stop being part of the family. I stopped being an excuse for it. I drew a dot at the bottom, black, and signed, not as an end, as a limit. And then I went to bed, without thinking who would write, who would remember, who will decide to come back. I don't need to know, because I've already come to a place where I'm no longer waiting. I found myself.